Welcome to the much awaited Talkathon by medical experts from different areas of expertise by Med in Grade 2020. Firstly, I would like to thank this opportunity to welcome you all here today and thank you for taking time out from your busy lives and the work in your home countries to make the effort to attend this interactive session. Well, I cannot wait to introduce our esteemed panel for today's session. And without wasting any time, let's have our first panel. Thank you.
So I, with my immense pleasure, welcome our first panelist for the day, that is Dr. Umesh Prabhu. He is a pediatrician who had then developed interest in patient safety and why doctors make mistakes. He then moved on to being the medical director, board member of UK National Patient Safety Agency, advisor to UK professional regulation, and advisor to UK regulator.
He is now writing few books about my life and experience in NHS and the UK. He inspires youngsters how to be successful in life and how to be a great doctor or nurse or any healthcare professional. He works in the UK and is in India now. We're glad to have you with us today, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Please, can you have my first slide? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you all. I'm the only one who is probably slightly more older than you guys, and all of you look very enthusiastic and youngsters. And you are the future. And Mahatma Gandhi said, gently we can shake the world. My values come from my grandma, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. I come from a very small village in India. My parents are still there. I got many awards for the last 40 years. I've been in UK. I had an amazing career. But this is not about me. This is about all of you. I'm here to inspire you, motivate you, and tell you the secret of success. These are the various roles I have done. As I said, it is not about me. It's about all of you. Next slide, please. Secret of success is a journey, not an event. It starts with you. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And let me tell you what my grandma told me when I was 6 years old in a small village in India. She said, focus only on you. Don't worry about anybody else. Keep on working hard, keep on learning, and keep on moving forward. One day you will be somebody. Success is hard work, but harder you work, you get burnt out. So success is also about working smart. Success is knowing your dream. Nelson Mandela said, winner is a dreamer who doesn't give up. So you must know your dream. Only you can decide what's your dream, what success means to you, and nobody else can do it. Some of you want to be a doctor, some of you want to be engineers, some of you want to be physiotherapist or anything. But remember, you can do anything in this world, provided you are willing to work hard. Success is self-confident. You have to believe that you are going to be successful. Self-belief, self-sacrifice, self-confidence is extremely important for you to be successful. Most important, arrogance doesn't make you successful. You have to have a humility, you have to have a compassion, you have to have a kindness. I told both my children, be good at what you do, but be a nice human being so that everybody wants you and you will always have a job. And both my children have done very well. Learn about Mahatma Gandhi and Mandela. They are the two great and successful leaders. They were very polite. They are very compassionate. They loved everybody and they left a legacy behind. Next slide, please. Success occurs when your determination is bigger than excuses. Don't give excuses in life. We all fail, but failure is just a part towards success. Remember what Nelson Mandela said. He said, we don't fail. Either we win or we learn. Keep on learning from your failure. And the best way to learn is working with successful people. In India, look at Apollo Hospital. They started with one hospital in 1974. Today, they own 55 hospitals. Look at Devi Shetty, Narayana Health. Look at Arvinda Eye Hospital. They do a lot of amazing work in India. And as an Indian, I'm extremely proud of their work. Next slide, please. Look at Birlas. It's a very interesting story. I was recently interviewed for their job as a medical director. So I've learned about Birla in 1800 and look at the way how they made money. Look at the Tatas. Look at Amazon, Google, Apple. Learn from Kentucky Fried Chicken story. He failed 85 times, but he never gave up and he built a great empire. So successful people, they don't give up. They keep on moving forward. They keep on trying because they know their dream. Next slide, please. Don't give excuses in life. Failure is a part towards life. Children teach us a lot. Look at the child. Child never gives up just because child falls. Child keeps on learning, learns to walk, learns to run, and learns to be an adult and become successful. So, man or a woman, we are born to win. And you must remember that you are born to win, you are born to succeed and not to fail. And be with successful people, know your dream, and you'll always be successful. Next slide, please. Ask what is your purpose in life. Our purpose drives us. You must know your purpose. Bob McDonald, who was a great leader in America, he said, knowing the purpose is very important. Living a life with a purpose is much more meaningful than meandering through life without a purpose. And you have started a journey today and getting youngsters on board, and this is a journey you must continue. You must know your dream. What is that I want to do with my life? What is my vision? Where I would like to be in 10 years' time? Your journey starts tomorrow. Because life is a journey, success is a journey, it is not an event. Next slide, please. Plan very well. Life is all about planning. You got to plan very well. Work hard, work smart. With internet, you can find answer to any questions. Learn from successful people. Keep on learning new skills, new technique. Keep on moving forward. Remove your own negativity, your own greed, your own anger, your own frustration, your own stress. These are the negative things which you have. So never say, I'm going to fail. Always be positive. Always be confident. Always say, I'm going to win. I'm going to be successful. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Don't let your failure go to your heart or success go to your head. Humility is very important. Nobody wins without failing. Don't be jealous about others' success. That is not going to make your life better. Focus only on you, your dream, and never give up. Important to have a good network. If you want to be a physiotherapist, you have to learn from physiotherapists. You want to be a doctor, neurosurgeon, be with the neurosurgeons, learn from them. Future is digital technology. Future is artificial intelligence. Future is green energy. And future is healthcare and working from home. As you saw, COVID has completely transformed the life, and teaching, everything is done from distance. That is going to be the future. And with internet, anything is possible. And these are the things you must remember. These are the future. And that is where you must develop your skill. And then you will have a job once you've got a good skill, good education. Nelson Mandela said, education, education, education. Education and developing new skill is the most important for you to be successful. Today's children in India, they are not competing with only Indian children, but they are competing with American children, Chinese children. So you have to learn. You are going to compete with many others. So you have to. World is becoming very small. So you have to learn the skill. I was recently watching program from China. They have got fantastic artificial intelligence and digital technology. Next slide, please. This is my Twitter ID. This is my LinkedIn. I write a lot about success. I write a lot about leadership. I write a lot about patient safety. I'm truly impressed by what you are trying to do. And please do not hesitate to contact me anytime. I want to wish you all the best. And to be successful, I want to say final thing. You need three things. You need a wishbone, you need a backbone, and you need a funny bone. You must have a great sense of humor. You got humanity and compassion. You must know your dream, and you must have the courage. Winner is a dreamer who doesn't give up. So I want you to win, and I'm always here to guide you. I'm always here to help you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any question at the end of the session today.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your motivation and very moving words. Now, as our next panelist, we have with us Yasmin Elkbani. She is a pharmacist and a master's candidate at the Medical Research Institute, Alexandria University, Egypt. She's been working at the Alexandria Cancer Research Center, CRC, as clinical research coordinator for 2 years. And now she's been allowed to encounter the field of clinical research and learn about research principles and ethics. She's got the Good Clinical Practice Certificate, that is GCP, that enables her to collaborate professionally in clinical trials for investigational drugs.
In parallel, she also spent a year working as a research assistant with a research group who is working on a unique and novel approach, unprecedented in Egypt, investigating cancer metabolism as a targeted therapy. Furthermore, she's a global leadership panel member at a Fight Cancer Global Initiative settled in Texas, where she's an advocate for cancer patients and cancer research. Today, she'll be talking about introduction to drug trials. We're glad to have you with us, ma'am, today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your invitation. Thank you so much for your invitation. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
can hear you.
You're audible.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your invitation. And I'm really glad to be among the pioneers in clinical research and this amazing conference. So, so I should start my sharing my screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is it clear, right? It's good. Okay. So today I'll be talking about the introduction to clinical trials. As you can see from this trend that we are seeing right now is COVID-19 vaccination, clinical trials, and phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, and failure and success and all that. So I'll just take this trending approach and let's go ahead to see what is it all about. So here's what I'll be talking about this, an overview of the translational science spectrum, and then clinical trials, what are they, types and phases, and then I'll go to the research team, who are they and responsibilities, and then the conclusion with a brief summary of all this. So what is actually translational science spectrum? So basically from this spectrum, you'll see it represents the whole stages of basic research, right from the very basic biological sciences to the interventions to the health improvement of the clinical aspects in human or patient care in individuals or the community worldwide. So from this, you can see it's like a network, an integrated network. It's not a linear, it's not even a unidirectional. It's like a communication or integral parts all connected to each other. And each one of these are building up in each other and informing each other in each step. So from this, we will be seeing what are these especially, what are the definitions, a quick definition of all these. So basic research is all about scientific exploration. You have this lead, you have this product, this candidate, this lead molecule that you will try to do further investigation and to see if it's going to be working in the future or not. So right from the very basic research, you will go to the preclinical research, which is called the translational research. So it's like a connection between the basic science and a human medicine or human or clinical trials, to be more specific. Basically, in this stage, you are just trying to see or test this leading product or leading molecule into animal models, cell lines, cell culture, samples of human or animal tissues, and see if it's gonna work or not. And if worked or succeeded, you will move to the clinical research aspect, which is basically clinical trials in human subjects. To basically see, or the main goal of this is to see this intervention, is it safe or effective or both. And moving from this, you will have to seek for clinical trials or obtaining these, how should I say, like regulatory approval for this intervention, because it cannot be proceeded without this approval. You cannot spread this new drug or even proceed in this clinical trial without this approval. And after this, if it got approved and reached to the phase 3 or phase 4, and you obtain this approval from the regulatory authorities, you will start your clinical implementation or clinical practice, which is basically adoption these clinical outcomes from the clinical research into the general population. And also from this, you will also do further investigation to see long-term side effects or adverse events in the general publication. So here is an overview, a figure showing all the phases of translational science spectrum or continuum. As you can see, we have here from bench to bedside and to practice. So basically we have T1 and T2 and T3. It's quite different from the clinical trial phases because it's more like a generalized one. T1 includes phase 1 and phase 2, which is basically transferring this from the bench to the bedside. So T3 is more into phase 3 and phase 4 with further interventions and further observational studies or surveys research to finally implement it to the clinical practice safely and effectively. So what are the clinical trials types? So we have different types. So clinical research, mainly, it's like a big umbrella. It includes a lot of studies under this, but basically we will be talking about clinical trials. It's part of the clinical research. So we have like epidemiology, behavioral health services. We also have different types, different like treatment, prevention, diagnosis, screening, quality of life, and genetic studies. As you can see from these types, it's all about testing. If it includes human subjects, it's called a clinical trial. Other than this, it's clinical research. Or maybe they could be used interchangeably according to the approach you are designing or your approach or your purpose as a scientist or as a researcher. So actually, what are clinical trials? So basically, clinical trials, you're testing and evaluating a new intervention, whatever it is, a new treatment, a new device, diagnostic, biomarkers, and all this as part of this, and evaluate these outcomes of the human subject or within the human subject. So basically, the focus on this is improving the knowledge of this diagnostic methods and ensuring better patients' care and health outcomes for public health. So basically here, as you can see, clinical trials goal, basically it's the main goal is determination if this kind of treatment or prevention and behavior approach are safe and effective. So what are the characteristics of clinical trials? Basically, it's done in human, all right, and volunteers, either they are volunteers are healthy or with a specific type of disease, it constitutes of the last step of the research process. Investigations also are done through research protocol, and it has to be approved from governmental or ethical committees, which is it's mandatory. So here's an overview of the whole development process in detail. As you can see, it takes a lot of years. Here is also another supplemental in-depth map or traffic map for all this. So here we will be talking about like types of clinical trials. It has like two main headlines or two main categories: observational, which is mean you observe as a scientist, or interventional, you already tested something new or something kind of a drug to prevent, to detect, to treat a disease within a human. So there is a different approaches between two. So as you can see, observational clinical trials, it includes several types, which are basically ecological, cross-sectional, case controls, cohort studies, and interventional. It includes all these types of clinical trials, which we'll be talking about, or let me say phases of clinical trials. So here we have drug development process. As you can see, we start with the clinical testing. As we mentioned, preclinical research or translational research, you try to assess the safety and biological activity of this drug. So if it's 100% sure it's effective, you have to file something called IND, Investigation of New Drug, to the FDA. After seeking this approval, because you cannot proceed, as I told you, anything in clinical trial without approval from the regulatory authorities, if you get this approval IND, you'll move forward to the phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3. So basically, phase 1 is small, healthy volunteers or specific groups of people with a specific disease. You determine safety and dosage. Around 50% of these INDs will be moved forward to the phase 2. Basically, phase 2 is the critical one because it divided into phase 2 A and B, which is most of the trials are failed in this step because a lot of the reasons, maybe because one of them is because of the funding or because you didn't establish the proof of concept. So basically, phase 2 is evaluation, this effectiveness, and figure out what are the side effects of this compound in human. So as you can see, the INDs percentage is decreased into 33 and will be decreased further into the phase 3 clinical trials, which verifying more effectiveness and monitoring adverse events on the long term. And after this, you will seek another file, which is NDA, New Drug Application to the FDA. So everything is well done, and this is all the phases of drug development, but basically you cannot proceed without a study protocol. Okay, you have this idea, so you have this study design, so what? You have to establish and start working on your study protocol. So what is exactly is a study protocol? So study protocol, it's a protocol, a detailed document that describes everything, literally everything about the clinical trial, including objectives, design, methodologies, considerations, organization of the trial, background, rationale, inclusion-exclusion criteria, everything about the drug, the pharmacological effects, and everything. Why is that? Because this protocol will be observed or reviewed, to be more specific, will be reviewed by the ethical committee for approval. So basically, it ensures the safety and human subjects involved in the trials and integrity of the data collected afterwards. Whereas there's another title called a protocol amendment. What is that? Is also a protocol, but with a different changes. Okay, there has been a change maybe in the protocol after all these years, because as I told you, clinical trial takes a lot of years, so there has to be a minor changes or whatever the change is. It's called a protocol amendment. So here are the elements of protocol, what it has to be included. And here is an example of the protocol. And as you can see, it has a lot of things. So we'll be moving forward to the informed consent. So informed consent will not be, how should I say, you cannot proceed in clinical trials with a human subject involved in without their informed consent. So basically, this is a written summary of all the information about the trial, including everything, adequate information about this, providing all the potential risks and benefits for this. You have this kind of a Q&A questions with the patients, and to give them some time or adequate time, to be more specific, for their, for considering all the options about this, because you are providing them with everything, especially the risks, and most importantly, you need their consent on this. So basically, you should provide them with the all information plus the adequate time for this. So here, informed consent, it has to be obtained before trials begin, and has to be signed and dated by the subject itself. And so what it happens with, for example, if that subject is a child, this is an exception. So you should also must seek for further for informed consent from parents or relatives, or any condition that would impair this. You should seek from close relatives for this patient. So IRB, that's the approval or the institutional or the ethical committee that gives you approval if this informed consent, if this protocol is adequate and ensures the protection of human rights and welfare of this human subject in this trial. So basically, without their approval, you cannot continue or proceed in your clinical trial. So this is a critical step that you should ensure that your protocol, your documents, everything is including all the guidelines for and standardization for the patients, protection of patients and rights welfare of human rights subjects by reviewing their research protocols and related materials. That's their job or how should I say, main goal or main role in this clinical trials. Here's an overview as well. That's a flow chart of what exactly happens. And then after that, after your clinical trial, you have to do a registering of this. So there is a several or different types of registry of clinical trials, as you can see here, and these are some of them as well. And then you start preparing your manuscripts. So there's different types of clinical trials following reporting guidelines, different different websites or different for reporting, like Consort, Stroke, START, all these with different have their own specific clinical trials types. So here are the sections as well of preparing the outline, your manuscript. Okay, and then I'll start with the research team. Basically, we have what it's called key stakeholders. We have the clinical team or clinical side. We have study participants, the patients. We have regulatory authorities like IRB, and we have these IRB and ethics committee. We have sponsors. We have contract research and organizations. Each one of them have their own role and duties within this clinical trial right from the beginning. uh, Establishing like a question, regulatory requirements. Each one of these stakeholders have their own job. Hers as well. You can see from planning and training right from the very beginning of the conduct of this trial and the training of the staff. Every one of these stakeholders have their own job allocated here as well. So also there is who are the team included. We have clinical research nurses, we have principal investigators, we have clinical trial coordinators, pharmacists, laboratories. So here's what exactly my job or clinical research coordinator's job. It's more like a connection or link between all the teams together and all the other parties together. Like for example, they have connection with the principal investigator, commercial sponsors, patients participation, data management, pharmacy, dealing with the investigation of products, recruitment and screening, dealing with study logistics and ethics as well. So it has to be like coordinating everything within the research team. So to sum up, here is a summary or steps for participation for, like, for example, someone is coming to our clinic as a participant or to be enrolled in the study. So what will happen is these small steps. There's a pre-screening, which is like initial conversations between the investigators or co-investigators and the team together with the patient. It might take like from 45 minutes to 1 hour, discussing everything in detail, all the questions answered, everything. And sometimes we give them some time to think about it and come to us with final decision. After this final decision, they will have to do the sign the informed consent, signed and dated, and then we'll start our screening with the all vitals and labs and medicals and all this, and then the enrollment and randomization will start accordingly, and then we'll stick to the study visits according to the protocol outlines, and then there's an end of study treatment, and then a follow-up, and then completion or closeout maybe of the trial. So here is what is I call what is it called, like the core competencies or your skills, professional skills that you will develop in this spectrum, in this field, whatever it is it preclinical, is it basic research, whatever it is, from the whole phases, from the whole spectrum, you will develop such core competencies that will help you to move forward. Like for example, you will develop more knowledge about scientific concept and research design, ethical considerations and patient care and safety, medicines development and regulations, and you will understand more about good clinical research and good clinical practice. What is it? What is it all about? And you will start to know more about data management, like source data, like data entry, queries, answering them, and how to deal with that. Leadership and professionalism. You will start to lead your own work with dealing with the teamwork and communication with them effectively. And the bottom line of this, everything in your work or either like scientific field or others, communication, teamwork is essential, no matter what. It's like an integral part and very important part for your for proceeding work smoothly and effectively. So that's it, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for empowering us with such useful information and knowledge that is actually very, very important for any research enthusiast. It
Thank
was
you so
really very helpful and kind of you. Now, next I invite our third panelist for the day, Reem. She's a fifth year MBBS student in MBRU. She developed a growing interest in investigating and solving issues in the modern healthcare system and advocating future doctors to provide patient-centered care.
She is always looking for opportunities to share her stories and experiences in hope of inspiring others and empowering individuals living with chronic illnesses. Passionate about volunteering and giving back to the community, and hopes to pursue a career in both clinical and academic medicine. Today, Reem will be talking about Putting the care in healthcare, a patient's perspective. We are so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And hey, everyone. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak in this conference. I'm very happy to be here. So as you already said, my name is Reem Hatem, a fifth-year medical student in Mohammed bin Rashid University in Dubai. And thank you so much, Dr. Umesh and Yasmin, for your enlightening talks as well. My topic will be a bit of a frame shift, I would say, as I will talk more about a personal story than a clinical topic. So I'll first share my screen, if that's okay. Okay. All right. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Great. So first of all, I thought very long and hard about what would be the merits of me sharing something considered a bit private with an audience. As you can imagine, it is a bit scary and can leave the speaker feeling exposed or vulnerable. But I also believe that, and I hope that by speaking up, my example may give some benefit to the audience, perhaps start a conversation, inspire someone, hopefully, or just spark some will to change, which is my ultimate goal. Because while all change does not necessarily lead to improvement, all improvement requires some degree of change. So let's start. As we said, I'm a fifth-year medical student, but what a lot of people don't know is that I'm also a patient living with chronic illness for over 15 years now. So that's much longer than I've been studying medicine, obviously. And I spent a very good deal of my life in hospitals. I met all sorts of doctors, which is why I'm giving this presentation today from a patient's perspective, per se. So this experience has definitely had a huge impact on me, no surprises. And the experience with illness from such a young age usually shapes the person they are. And you could even say or argue that it influenced my decision to study medicine to begin with and choose a career in healthcare, and you would not be wrong. So I will share a bit of a timeline. I really don't have a lot of slides because I'll be mostly talking from my own experience. So this is just a timeline starting from back in 2004. I was 6 years old. One day I had really bad GI symptoms. I stopped eating, stopped using the washroom because of a lot of pain, bleeding. And my parents took me to multiple doctors, pediatricians, GI specialists, all sorts of things. But no one could accurately diagnose me, and none of their prescribed medications at the time worked. So I spent 3 years without treatment, without diagnosis. So going to 2007, 3 years later, I was 9 years old, and my parents were basically fed up. They started looking for opinions of experts elsewhere. So we had one recommendation from a family friend to go to the UK. And it was over there that I was finally diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And now I'm very lucky to be speaking to a medical community here. So I'm pretty sure most of you already know what this is. But for those who may not know, Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disease where basically your immune system attacks the healthy cells in your mouth, stomach, intestines, your entire GI tract, basically, and causes inflammation, all sorts of symptoms. Not fun. Anyway, so because I remained 3 years undiagnosed and untreated, my case has become pretty severe, that conventional therapy no longer worked. So they eventually had to do some surgery. They had to put me on an immune modulating biological drug or medicine that suppresses part of your immunity. So it stops attacking your healthy cells. And of course, that comes with its own side effects and complications. So it was a bit of a hard decision for my parents, who were told eventually that the benefits of me taking the medicine outweighed the risks of the side effects. And also, it's much better to take it rather than stay without treatment and risk getting worse. So I started on it and thankfully responded very well, continued taking it with very little side effects. So as you can imagine, a 6-year-old and 9-year-old at the time, although I'm a medical student now and understand most of what's happening, at the time, most of the decision making, most of the understanding, the conversations were taken care of by my parents. So this is just, it goes to show how a disease does not really affect an individual, it can affect an entire family. Now, moving on, between 2008, 2016, between my ages 10 and 18, thankfully went back home to Dubai. I continued school, I continued with my medication as well, and I went into remission. And my life for those 8 years was close to normal. Thankfully graduated, decided to study medicine. And then sooner or later, I started getting symptoms again. And I found that my body has stopped responding to the medicine I've been taking for almost 9 years. And I need a new medicine. And there was a newer medication in the market, another immune modulating drug, but with a slightly different mechanism. So it had less side effects than the other one, but the major issue was it was very, very, very expensive. And most of my life, I had a good health insurance thanks to my dad's work. So didn't worry that much about the price, we just started on it. And now we move on to current day 2020. And that's basically where the issue starts. So my insurance expired pretty much March of this year. And I had issues with renewing it. So I had to use another insurance plan. A lot of issues happened. It was still, it's good to have insurance, but it was more basic. It's good for a relatively healthy 22-year-old student, but not someone with chronic illness on lifelong treatment, as you can imagine. So I had some battles trying to get my insurance provider to cover my treatment. And they said they would consider it if I get an updated doctor's report. So this is where the story really happens. This is what I want to focus on. I could not see any of my previous doctors because I have a new insurance and they're not covered. So I had to go to a new specialist. And when I met him, he was quite standoffish, I would say, very distant. I explained my very long history in a few minutes, and I gave him my old reports to read. But weirdly enough, the doctor refused to believe my history. He refused the reports that I gave him, and he insisted that he sends me for a CT scan of all things himself to confirm that I have Crohn's. And I tried to explain that would show him nothing. A CT would not show him anything. But he insisted, and he sent me for CT anyway. And by the time I did the CT and he got the report, my disease was untreated for 3 months. I had the most terrible relapse. I developed bleeding sores, pain everywhere, terrible fatigue and weakness, couldn't stop eating. It's because my doctor refused to A, listen to my story, B, believe me and the reports, and you C, write a report for the insurance. And I believe that it was pretty negligent, you could argue, and but his mistreatment was very frustrating. He stormed out of his office, he refused to examine me after the flare-up. He refused to help me fix the issue. And he spent the entire time trying to defend himself, proving that he was not responsible for the worsened situation, rather than try to figure out a way to get my treatment. So I looked very hard for another doctor that I could see with whatever basic insurance coverage I had. And I found one who's an expert in IBD and one clinic. And this is really interesting because the moment I met him, I could tell he was very much more different than the other doctor. Number one, he greeted me with a smile, had a pleasant attitude. Then he listened attentively to my history. He only interjected when necessary, read all my reports, asked me relevant questions. And when we found out that he can't treat me himself because he's in a clinic and I need to hospital, he took the time to actually contact doctors in Dubai, both of whom he trusts with cases similar to mine and are working in hospitals that are covered by my insurance. So he went above and beyond. And he also wrote a very great report that I immediately sent to insurance. And soon after that, my treatment was approved, which is miraculous. And I just wanted to note that all of that happened in just one appointment, just 1 hour sitting in his office. And so that's basically my story that I wanted to share, just compare and contrast my those two experiences with two GI specialists, two medical professionals, and how vastly different those are. So this is from a patient's perspective, and it just goes to say that we as medical professionals, we don't usually think from the perspective of who we treat. So I understand that this story may be hard to relate to, especially if you're lucky and you're blessed with enough with good health, thankfully. But I hope at least that you understand that this story happens much more frequently than you would imagine. And it could happen to literally anyone. And in many times, those issues could have easily been avoided if the doctor showed what the patient wanted to see the most. Not how smart they are or how many accolades or certificates they have, but how much they care, how much they're willing to listen and empathize and understand. And more often than not, you'll find that the solutions to those problems are actually very simple. And it's been proven that good communication with the patient improves patient outcomes. And if you show that you care, patients are more likely to follow your treatment plan. So it also goes both ways. The better you treat your patients, the more job satisfaction you will have as a doctor. You'll feel better when you treat people the way you'd like to be treated. And that's basically how you could boil it all down in one conclusion. It's just treat others as you would like to be treated. Or if you'd like, you can consider it as what kind of treatment would I want my mother to have, my own mother, or my grandparents, or my child, etc. So there you have it. While we're always taught about patient centered care, unfortunately, the further we go into our studies, the more our empathy declines. And so we need to find a new way to integrate this into our everyday learning. So it's not just something that we pass over in a lecture, but something that we remember every day as we see patients and as we study. And I hope someday that we can change medical education so that we start seeing patients as individuals who have fears, have hopes, and their own goals, and they need your help rather than just cases. And as I mentioned before, sharing the story with you all was just in hopes of starting a conversation, maybe inspiring someone, sparking some will to change, or at even the very least serve as a reminder to us that our role as healthcare professionals is first and foremost to serve humanity. So, if anyone, I would like to end with this. If anyone remembers this line from the Hippocratic Oath, I will remember that there's art to medicine as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. And that's how I'd like to conclude my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you stay safe. And you may ask any questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Reem. It was really, really very moving to hear such a personal story, yet a very thought-provoking one, especially for all of us who are preparing to be doctors one day. As you said, that don't just consider patients as somebody who needs to be cured, consider them as an individual. Definitely a thought-provoking story and a very touching one. Thanks a lot for sharing such kind story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reem. And as Yuvraj said, it was such a sensitive yet such beautifully put story. And I think this story is going to stay with us forever. And we definitely have so much to learn from this. So thank you again. It touched all our hearts. And with this, we come to the end of the session. And we do not have any questions from the audience's side. So I'd go ahead and conclude our session for today. So, with this, we come to the end of our session, and I'd like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to thank our esteemed panelists for enlightening us with their life experiences and motivating us, the youth of today. From secrets to success to clinical trials and seeing healthcare through a patient's perspective, it surely was an informative session. We hope you all had a great time as much as we had preparing this talkathon for you all. Thank you very much and stay safe.
Thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you to our respectable panelists, first of all, for sharing such beautiful stories, each one different to another, one being a booster for all of us by Dr. Umesh, especially in the times which are not, which are actually very doomy, I would say. Then we had Yasmin with us, who actually shared such knowledgeable stuff with us, and then such a sweet story to conclude with. Of course, for all this, I would like to thank each and every one of our organizing team and our coordinators and SMR for bringing the opportunity to us to coming across such great panel. From here, I give the screen to Tarun. He has to announce something. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Oras. Thank you, panelists, for joining the session. And I would request all the delegates. Next, we have a extracurricular fest where we will display all the performances by various healthcare students related to the theme cultural heritage of state or country. So please stay tuned for it. It will start at 10 p.m. So. Uh, uh,